Hello everyone, and welcome to a special Coronation deck here on the Jolly Scarecrows channel. And I think both sides of the Coronation coin, whether you're a fan or not, might be satisfied in some ways with this deck, because what we are crowning here is the Master King Archfiend. This is an entire deck based around using the effect of this card right here. And its effect is really interesting because it works once per chain, so it can be constantly triggering if you set it off. And the way you do that is by sending a fiend from anywhere to the graveyard. It has another effect actually as well. If you pay life points, send a fiend from the deck to the graveyard too. That tends to happen less often, but there are situations where it does. And the reason why that is good is because you've got fiends in your deck, like Archfiend RS, which lets you search for an Archfiend card, and Fiendish Rhino Warrior lets you send another fiend. Soul Scissors, if it's in the grave, if your fiend monster is destroyed, then you can bring it back and destroy one of your opponent's cards. Plus, the Dark Spirited Banishments, basically you can use them to keep bringing back your level 8 fiends, which we're running plenty of because that is what, in the main, the Labyrinth boss monsters are. So this archetype, which is quite kingly, actually, I think you'll see. So we've got ladies and castles and servants. So it really well fits this theme of there being a king, and then ladies, servants, they're in their castle, and then there's a whole load of traps going around. And obviously you've got the very specific Labyrinth castle, which welcome onto the red carpet, Knights of the Realm into the castle. And then there's the sinister going on, maybe behind the scenes, which underpin and support that, if you catch my rift. Also, the naming of this trap card, depending on your point of view, is also quite interesting. Now, if you've played Labyrinth, obviously you will be expecting a lot of these trap cards to work, and they're really spammable, and you essentially, the regular Labyrinth decks, you play one, you special summon one out, you use it to get another trap, and you keep going and you keep going, and you use big normal traps like Infinite Impermanence, Dimensional Barrier, and Eradication Epidemic Virus to kind of lock down your opponent's plays really quickly. This deck goes for something slightly different. Essentially, we use it as a trap toolbox to search for odd traps to do with themes surrounding royalty. So we have Lineage of Destruction, which works somehow in this deck. So if you destroy a defense position monster, then one of your level 8 labyrinths can attack again. It rarely comes up, but it is interesting when it does. We've got King's Consonance. This lets you banish monsters from the grave in order to make a synchro summon. And the best way, I think, of doing this is using this Morph King. So it's another king we've got in the deck. I think we've got 4 or 5 different kings in reality, even though the main king is going to be the Master King. So you get rid of the Morph King and a bunch of other monsters, and that lets you do some synchro summon plays. Interestingly, if you get to special summon this, and it is pretty readily special summoned thanks to the effect of Labyrinth. So if you use a non-Labyrinth trap, you get to special summon a fiend. You bring back the Morph King. You use it to morph into one of your level 8s, and you often have level 8 Labyrinths on the field, and then you just need a level 3 to go into Psychic End Punisher, and we think we've got that in one of the replays. The other great play of the deck is because it's also an Archfiend toolbox, because you can keep using Archfiend RS's effect. We've also got in here Give and Take, where you can give the opponent an Emperor. So not a king, but importantly, because it'll be on your opponent's side of the field, it doesn't matter too much. You give them an Emperor, and this locks them into summoning fiend monsters. And so that can obviously really cripple your opponent's strategy, especially if you can get that out turn 1. It's quite hard to do turn 1, to be honest, and you'd probably need to reinvent the whole deck to make that more consistent. But yeah, it's certainly a big power play. And you might be wondering, there's something missing here in this Coronation. The eagle-eyed ones amongst you might have seen the crown, World Legacy World Crown, is right here, and it doesn't come up too often, but it's actually really nice in terms of how it works with Master King Archfiend. And there's plenty of monsters which are kings in Yu-Gi-Oh! I think there's 80 cards or so with king in their name, but there's only 4 with crown, and only one of them really resembles a crown, and the other one is the normal monster from the World Chalice. The World Legacy archetype. And so this special summon to a zone a link monster points to. Brilliant. So you special summon out your Masking Archfiends just with 2 Fiend monsters, which you can easily get with the effect of Tour Guide, or potentially with Ariana plus Trap, as long as your opponent, obviously, this deck isn't Ash-proof. If anything, it's incredibly susceptible to it, but that's beside the point. It's running. I mean, what is this running? It's running King's Continents and Royal Writ of Taxation. Ladies and gentlemen, have you seen a deck with Royal Writ of Taxation? It's rubbish. It's absolutely rubbish. But it's readily activatable, and sometimes you will take damage with its effect. I don't know if that doesn't count as paying life points, really, but it would be good if it did. And the last card to talk to you about before we get into the replays is this thing, Soul of the Supreme King. It's properly rogue. But yeah, pay half your life points to bring out the Supreme King's Arc. And then you can use it to basically, when your opponent activates a spell next, bring out a whole bunch of nonsense dragons, including this one, this one, this one, and this one. I think they had to be a fusion dragon, a pendulum dragon, a synchro dragon, and an XE dragon. And they don't do much. That's kind of more for fun. However, obviously, Clearwing is actually a genuinely really good card. So I think I will leave it there and go into the replays to show a little bit more of how this deck's supposed to work. But I hope you enjoy using it. And of course, if you want to convert it into something that's a bit more successful, fiddle around with the trap lineup, take out the crowns, and maybe some of the kind of more memey cards like this Morph King, and you actually have the basis for a pretty good deck, I think. Okay, so this is actually a pretty good hand, especially if your opponent hasn't started with Ash Blossom. Unfortunately, they didn't this duel. So we'll start off with the field spell. We'll use Tour Guide, and fortunately that gives us the Fiendish Rhino Warrior. So not only can we go straight into our Master King Archfiend, but the Rhino Warrior's effect's going to activate. We're going to mill Heiress, and then Heiress's effect is going to trigger, and then we'll use Master King Archfiend. It'll go back into the deck thanks to our roll, and then we're allowed to search for the trap Ghastly Glitch. So immediately with the effect of Heiress, we've got a trap card live for us to use as part of our Labyrinth combos. So we'll set 3 and pass. And so with the effect of the field spell, you want to time your trap cards right, depending on which is a Labyrinth trap and which isn't. So I think we've got Welcome Labyrinth, Unending Nightmare, which is obviously really good in this deck, against this opponent, and Ghastly Glitch face down. The opponent draws and they go into their Griffin, and with that we will trigger Welcome Labyrinth, because when the field spell's on the field, that will also trigger a destruction effect. Plus, we get out the Lady Labyrinth, which can let us set an additional normal trap from the deck when we use a normal trap, and that will, of course, happen with Ghastly Glitch when we deem it worthwhile. So here, they'll use the Adventurer cards, and Unending Nightmare is still really good, so we can get rid of their plays around that. Master King Archfiend, again, there you see a mill into Heiress. Did that in the first turn, we're now doing it on the opponent's turn, and that will let us add Labyrinth Archfiend to our hand. So this is a fusion of the 2 decks in one card, which can be special summoned whenever a trap card is played. They'll make a few moves. They'll go into Thunder Dragon Colossus. They try to go into Vert, because this is an older build where before this was banned. And so obviously that's getting Ghastly Glitched, because as you can see by the hand lineup, I think they'll be going into the Phoenix Enforcer. And with that, we can then trigger Labyrinth Archfiend, and with the Labyrinth, we're able to special summon a Fiend, and that Fiend is Fiendish YuGiOh Warrior, which also has this, what an absurd card this is. Fiend monsters you control can't be destroyed by battle or card effects, except this card. And like, it's ridiculously good for the deck, and just generally. So that gives us the protection that we need. So the opponent just inflicts life point damage through an attack, I believe. Doesn't even bother trying to go for Fiendish YuGiOh Warrior, which is a bit of a mistake. But maybe they weren't aware of the effect. So we draw here. And then I attack and use Fair Welcome Labyrinth on that attack. So I negate my own attack. And I do that to allow me to search my deck for more trap cards using the Lady Labyrinth effect. The one I go for is Fiend Griefing, because it gives me that ability to banish an opponent's card. So say they go for something in their grave, I've got an instant banish plus a Fiend Mill. Great card for the deck. And with the effect of Labyrinth, because I activated a Labyrinth trap card, their card is destroyed too. And you can see we trigger a whole bunch of effects here. Welcome Labyrinth comes back. Masking Archfiend puts cards back into the deck, and I mill the Dark Spirit of Malice to protect some of the level 8s that are on the field. We inflict damage, but we don't quite have game. However, what we do have, I think, was this just drawn? I can't remember. I think it might have just been just drawn. We have the crown for the king. In order to open up the space for that, I then go into Cracker, which is a really interesting card. It's basically discard one for a special summon of a fiend. So often, you know, you can bring it out and then special summon one of the link materials you use to bring it out. This gives us space for our World Crown, which is nice because it has a really cool effect of being able to interrupt a link monster's activation. So on their turn in the draw phase, the trap card that I set was the Give and Take, and at some point, I think, with one of my trap cards, somewhere, I put the Archfiend Emperor into the grave. And so now, through Give and Take, I've special summoned it onto their side of the field, and I've locked them into fiends. And obviously, well, they don't have any. I get a revive using the Servant, and happen to get the Archfiend, which is nice. I trigger Royal Writ of Taxation, because I can in the standby phase, and that lets me search King's Consonants. Just trying to get out as many of the trap cards, really, to get the video live as I can. Should have really used Fiend's Griefing on the Water Enchantress, but actually it doesn't matter. And I kind of mess around at this point. Say what I can. I bring out Lineage of Destruction. It can't be activated this turn, but at least it's there for when I destroy the... if I were to destroy the Emperor on another turn, and then I'd get a second attack off. And that's, yeah, that's kind of a complete, I guess, guide into how the deck theoretically should work. So this duel is a bit silly, but it's fun to show some of the kind of odd combos that the deck has within its grasp. So neither of us start particularly well. Both are kind of bricky hands, to be honest. They go for a set 2-1 in defense, and I just have to go into Fiendish YuGiOh Warrior because I don't have the capacity to use, I haven't drawn any of my things like Tour Guide or Searchers, and my trap lineup is poor. Now, in this instance, I do use Unending Nightmare, and I activate it to destroy their Mystical Space Typhoon. It costs 1,000 life points, but what it allows me to do is trigger the effects of the labyrinths that are in my hand. And so they come out, and that lets me search for the Fair Welcome Labyrinth as well. So I've got an extra trap. They end up ramming their monster into Labyrinth Archfiend, I think. Kind of bot-related incident. Not that I think it would matter anyway. So here I show the value of the Morph King. So what I can do, I've constantly got level 8s on the field. This effect can activate there on the Lady Labyrinth. Morph King's level becomes level 8. I can then tune it, with the level 3, which again is my most common level, and bring out Psychic End Punisher. And yes, even with the kind of mill effects that I've got, still playing, and yeah, can use Psychic End Punisher's effect to attack for game.